The NBA season is officially in full swing as every team in the league has played at least 10 games so far. There have been many surprises, including the Jazz currently leading the West, and both the Warriors and Lakers being well below 500. The worst surprise for me though, considering I'm a fan of them, is the Timberwolves currently being 6-8 with the worst plus-minus lineup in the league, but that's a topic for a different day. Instead of focusing on these team topics, I want to focus on what could be the craziest MVP race that the NBA has had in a very, very long time. There are so many players putting up career highs in most, or in some cases all, stats. Today we'll look at the frontrunners to compare stats and try to predict who's going to come out on top and etch their name in the history books as a 2022-2023 NBA MVP. We'll start out by taking a quick look at the reigning MVP of the league, Nikola Jokic. His numbers are slightly down from last year, but they are definitely no slouch. He's putting up 21 points, 10 rebounds, and 9 assists, nearly averaging a triple-double while still shooting at a 60% clip. As he has for the last 2 years, he's putting out those numbers very quietly because he is not a very flashy player with the clips that House of Highlights and Bleacher Report are going to post on a nightly basis. And perhaps the biggest reason that his massive numbers go under the radar is because his team is constantly at the middle or bottom half of the Western Conference. They currently sit at 9-4, which is a great start, but they are never in the fight for the 1 seed, so most of his massive numbers are not posted regularly. This, however, cannot be said about Giannis Antetokounmpo or Steph Curry. These two are always being posted about on social media and playing on national TV due to their ridiculous highlight plays, or more likely because their team is always at the front of their respective conferences. Excluding the Warriors' record this season, which we'll get to later, everything still remains true. Giannis is having an absolutely absurd beginning to the season, with averages of 32 points, 12 rebounds, 5 assists, and both 1 block and steal each. That puts him on pace for his highest ever points per game in a season, more than both MVP seasons. Despite these insane stats, the reason that Giannis is an MVP favorite right now is because he has led the Bucks to a 10-2 start, which puts them atop a ridiculously competitive East this season. The opposite can be said about the Warriors, who are off to a 5-8 start coming off the back of winning the finals last year. Really, the only bright side the Warriors have this year is that they have 2-time MVP Steph Curry on pace for his best ever season. He is averaging more points, rebounds, and assists than his unanimous MVP season in 2015. He's putting up 32.5 points, 7 rebounds, 7 assists a game, shooting 43% from 3, and also averaging just over a steal per game. It is absolutely insane to think that he is outpacing his unanimous MVP season, and yet on most MVP prediction ladders, he sits outside the top 3. If he keeps these numbers up, it could be one of the best seasons of all time from a player who does not win MVP. Now we'll go ahead and move on from the MVP favorites and look into some of the dark horse candidates who are off to some really solid starts. First up is probably the highest dark horse candidate, and that's Jayson Tatum. Similar to Jokic, he's having a really good start to the season, but most of his numbers are going under the radar. He's putting up 32 points, 7 rebounds, and 4 assists while shooting 40% from 3. Him and Jaylen Brown have led the Celtics to a 10-3 start and put them in the fight for a high seed in the Eastern Conference. This start is much needed for the Celtics, as last year they started out really slow, then got hot going into playoff time. If they can have a high seed going into the playoffs, I think they're absolutely a favorite to win the NBA Finals. Another player helping lead their team to a high seed in this tough Eastern Conference is Donovan Mitchell. He's putting up career highs in points, assists, and blocks per game, while also shooting a career high 44% from beyond the arc. Despite already being an all-star candidate year after year, he is somehow having a breakout season with his new team, averaging 32 points, 5 rebounds, and 6 assists. This incredible play is helping the Cavs' young core come together and has pushed them to fight solid East teams early on at 8-5. If Mitchell keeps playing like this, the Cavs could easily find themselves with a high seed going into the playoffs. Our final dark horse candidate, and he is really a dark horse candidate, who is by far the most surprising of the season, is Lauri Markkanen. He's putting up career highs in almost every single stat, including points and assists per game, as well as field goal percentage. He is the lowest on my list of MVP candidates, as he is probably for all of you, but his numbers are still incredible. He is on pace for 22 points, 9 rebounds, and 2.5 assists, while shooting a career high 52.7% from the field. This surprising start to his season has also led to the Jazz coming out of nowhere and starting the season atop the Western Conference with a 10-5 record. Perhaps the craziest part of this MVP race is that none of these players are the favorite or who I'm predicting to win. The clear favorite for MVP right now is Luka Doncic. He is having one of the best starts to a season ever from any player or any position. Despite Luka only putting up his career best per game stats in points and steals, this season is by far his most complete up to this point. He is putting up a ridiculous 34 points, 9 rebounds, and 8 assists with 2 steals a game as well. The only downside to his season so far is 3-point percentage, where he's shooting 29%. He has virtually carried this Mavericks team to a 7-5 start, but despite being in the middle of the pack playoff team, you are not going to want to see this Mavs team in the playoffs. Luka has been playing the best he ever has, and because he is also statistically one of the best playoff performers of all time, he and the Mavs can easily take many teams down. It has also been forgotten that last year they made the Western Conference Finals as a 4th seed. With Luka's insane consistency, scoring 30 points in every game this season besides 2 games, where he still scored 22 and 24, I just do not see a way that these numbers fall off. Now that we have looked at every player's individual MVP profile, let's look at how they match up against one another. I put together this graphic to compare all of our candidates. Green means that they lead the group in that stat, red means they are last for that stat. Yellow just means they're somewhere in the middle. Luka, Giannis, and Jokic are tied with 2 green stats for all of them, and on the other side with the most red stats, we also have a 3-way tie. This time, it's between Lauri Markkanen, Donovan Mitchell, and Jokic. There are many arguments for who should be MVP looking at this sheet. Tatum and Curry are consistently good, but rarely at the top. Jokic has the most green stats, but also has the most reds. The 2 favorites out of this group, I think, are Giannis and Luka, but I think Luka has the edge. Giannis is tied for tallest in height, so he should lead in rebounds, and his team is still 10-2 despite him not playing in multiple games this year. If we are looking at the best player while also describing who is the most valuable to their team, Luka has to win. Without him, that Mavs team is easily below 500 and probably already thinking about Victor Wembanyama in a Dallas jersey. This is only my opinion though, and I'm sure there's other people you think should win. Maybe even people that aren't on this list like Embiid or Durant. I want to hear your guys' opinion on this, so go ahead and comment. Who is your MVP favorite right now? Who do you think is going to win? Make sure to like if you enjoyed, and if you made it to the end of the video, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.